How do you rebuild when your world vanishes overnight? I'm Sarah Patterson, a librarian in Milberg, a small town where life moves slowly until it doesn't. For 22 years, I was Mark's wife, Emma's mom, the keeper of our quiet routines, until the moment I walked into our bedroom and saw Mark stuffing clothes into a suitcase like a man fleeing a crime scene. My heart pounded as I stood in my faded pajamas, the air thick with the scent of his cologne and betrayal. The core conflict wasn't just his leaving. It was the theft of our daughter's future, the unraveling of trust, and the eerie confidence of our 12-year-old Emma, who seemed to know more than I could fathom. Something dark lingered in her calm, a hint of plans I couldn't yet see, pulling me toward a truth that would redefine us both. The hardwood floor was cold against my bare feet as I watched him shove dress shirts into the bag, his movements frantic, no eye contact, no explanation. "Mark, what are you doing?" My voice trembled, barely audible over the rustle of fabric. He didn't look up. What I should have done years ago. His words landed like a punch, stealing my breath. 22 years of marriage, shared dinners, mortgage payments, Emma's school plays, and this was the end? I grabbed his arm, desperate for something to anchor me. "Mark, stop. Talk to me. What's happening?" He shook me off, his eyes finally meeting mine, and what I saw chilled me. No guilt, no sadness, just a cold, hard resolve. "I'm leaving, Sarah. Today." The room spun. Yesterday, we'd sat at the kitchen table, discussing Emma's college applications over lasagna. Last night, he'd kissed my forehead, said goodnight. Now I was a stranger in my own home. Is there someone else? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Mark paused, a tie dangling from his hand. For a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of shame, but it vanished. This isn't about anyone else. It's about me needing to breathe. But I knew better. The way his phone stayed face down for months, the late nights he blamed on work, the excuses I'd swallowed to keep the peace, they screamed at me now. "Where will you go?" My voice sounded small, pathetic. "I'll figure it out." He zipped the suitcase shut. "I need you to transfer my half of the savings to my personal account." That's when panic clawed at my chest. Our savings, Emma's college fund. Everything we'd built. I ran downstairs, feet slapping the floor, my heart racing like it might burst. Emma looked up from her cereal, her 12-year-old face creasing with worry. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetheart. Dad's just going on a trip." The lie tasted sour. I grabbed my laptop, fingers shaking as I logged into our bank accounts. The screen loaded, and my breath stopped. Checking. $247.83 savings, 0. Emma's college fund, $75,000 we'd saved for 12 years, was gone. "No," I whispered, refreshing the page, praying it was a glitch. The numbers didn't change. Transaction history showed Mark had transferred everything 3 days ago, while I was at my book club, laughing over wine. I called the bank, voice trembling, but the representative's calm tone confirmed the nightmare. Mark had full access. The transfers were legal. Emma's voice cut through my haze. "Mom, you're scaring me." She stood in her school uniform, ponytail neat, backpack by the door. She had no idea her father had stolen her future. Footsteps echoed on the stairs. Mark appeared, dragging his suitcase, passing us like we were ghosts. "That's it?" My voice found strength I didn't know I had. 22 years, and you're just walking away?" He paused, hand on the doorknob. "I left you a voicemail explaining everything." "I don't want a voicemail. Look at your daughter and explain why you're abandoning her." Emma stood slowly, her dark eyes, Mark's eyes watching him. He glanced at her for 3 seconds. "You'll understand when you're older," he said to her, then turned to me. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." The door closed with a quiet click, louder than a slam. Emma and I stood in the kitchen's silence, the coffee maker gurgling, the fridge humming. Outside, his car engine faded. "Is he coming back?" Emma asked, her voice steady. I wanted to lie, to shield her, but her eyes held no illusions. "I don't think so, baby." She nodded, processing. "Did he take our money?" The question stunned me. How could she know? "Some of it," I admitted. "My college fund, too?" I couldn't speak, just nodded. She rinsed her cereal bowl, dried it, and put it away with deliberate care. Then she turned, her face calm but different, a spark I couldn't name. "Mom, don't worry, I handled it." Her words, so certain, almost made me laugh. What could a 12-year-old handle? But her tone stopped me, quiet, confident, like she held a secret I wasn't ready for. "Handled what?" She grabbed her backpack. I'll miss my bus. We'll talk after school, okay? She was gone, leaving me in a house that felt too big, too empty, with questions piling like unpaid bills. The air smelled of coffee grounds and regret. I sank onto the couch, staring at the family photos on the wall. Us at Emma's science fair, Mark grinning at a barbecue. How had I missed the cracks? Emma's words echoed, "I handled it." What did that mean? My daughter, who still slept with a stuffed elephant, had spoken with a certainty that unnerved me. I clutched my phone, tempted to call Mark, to beg for answers, but my hands shook too much to dial. Instead, I pictured Emma on her bus, her serious eyes scanning the world, planning something I couldn't yet grasp. The day stretched ahead, heavy with dread and a strange, flickering hope that my little girl might be stronger than I ever imagined. The house felt different that first week without Mark, not just empty, but watchful somehow, as if the walls were holding their breath, waiting for the next shoe to drop. I found myself crying at random moments, folding his abandoned laundry that still carried the faint scent of his detergent, spotting his coffee mug in the dishwasher with a lipstick stain that wasn't mine, hearing Emma's alarm clock beep through the thin walls each morning like a reminder of our fractured routine. The mornings were the worst. I'd wake with a start, reaching for his side of the bed, only to find cold sheets and silence. But Emma moved through our shattered world like nothing had changed. Every day at 7:15, she'd appear in the kitchen, fully dressed in her crisp school uniform, backpack organized with military precision, lunch packed in her favorite blue container. She'd kiss my cheek and say, "Have a good day, Mom," in the same cheerful tone she'd used when we were still a complete family. When Mark would ruffle her hair and joke about her being the smartest kid in class, it was unsettling. This composure of hers, like she'd flipped a switch and turned off the part of herself that should be grieving. I watched her closely, searching for cracks, a tear-streaked pillow, a slammed door, anything to show she was hurting. But there was nothing. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I asked one morning, catching her wrist gently as she headed for the door, the fabric of her sleeve soft under my fingers. She looked at me with those serious dark eyes, so much like Mark's, that it twisted my gut. "I'm fine, Mom." "Are you?" I wasn't fine. I was falling apart piece by piece, my nights filled with restless tossing, my days blurred by a fog of disbelief. Bills started arriving, utilities, the mortgage, and each one felt like a fresh wound, reminders of the financial void he'd left. I'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at envelopes I couldn't open, my coffee growing cold as I replayed our last conversation in my head, wondering if I'd missed some sign, some plea for help. That evening, I decided to call my sister Janet for advice, needing her no-nonsense voice to ground me. As I dialed, pacing the living room with its faded rug and family photos gathering dust, I could hear Emma upstairs in her room. The sound drifted down through the floorboards, rapid clicking like she was typing frantically on her keyboard, the rhythm almost hypnotic. I assumed she was chatting with friends about the situation, maybe processing her feelings online the way kids do now, pouring out her confusion to anonymous screens. "Sarah, how are you holding up?" Janet's voice was warm with concern, laced with that big sister protectiveness she'd always had. "I don't know," I admitted, sinking onto the couch, the cushions sagging under my weight. "Emma's being so strong, but I'm worried she's bottling everything up. She hasn't cried once." "Some kids process differently," Janet said, her tone reassuring. "Remember when Dad left? You cried for weeks, but I got angry and broke Mom's favorite vase." The clicking upstairs stopped suddenly, then resumed with even more intensity, a staccato beat that echoed my rising unease. "What's that sound?" Janet asked, her curiosity cutting through the line. "Emma's on her computer. Probably homework or games." But even as I said it, something nagged at me. The rhythm was too consistent, too purposeful for casual gaming or social media scrolling. It sounded deliberate, like code being written or files being shuffled in the dead of night. After I hung up with Janet, promising to keep her updated, I made Emma's favorite dinner, grilled cheese sandwiches with tomato soup, the aroma filling the kitchen and masking the emptiness for a moment. I knocked on her door around 6:30, the wood cool against my knuckles. "Come in," she called, her voice muffled. I pushed the door open, carrying the dinner tray balanced carefully, steam rising from the bowl. Emma was sitting at her desk, her laptop screen angled away from me, the glow casting shadows on her young face. She closed it quickly when I entered, a swift motion that didn't escape my notice. "Brought you some food, honey." She took the tray without making eye contact, her fingers brushing mine briefly. "Thanks, Mom. You can set it on my nightstand." As I placed it down, the spoon clinking softly against the bowl, I glanced at her desk. Scattered papers, her school planner with neat handwriting, a few textbooks stacked precisely. Nothing unusual at first glance, but there was something deliberate about how she'd positioned everything. Like she'd arranged it specifically for my visit, a staged scene to deflect questions. "What were you working on?" I asked casually, trying to keep my voice light. "History report on the Industrial Revolution." She opened her laptop again, but I caught a glimpse of the screen before she minimized whatever she'd been viewing. It looked like an email program, not a school document, with subject lines that flashed too quickly for me to read. "Need any help?" "I'm good, thanks for dinner." I was dismissed, politely but firmly. I kissed the top of her head, her hair smelling of strawberry shampoo, and left. But the uneasy feeling lingered, coiling in my stomach like a warning. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Emma maintained her perfect routine, waking early, helping with small chores like setting the table, even reminding me to take my vitamins, while I spiraled deeper into confusion and grief. I'd wake at 3 a.m. with panic attacks, my chest tight, checking our bank accounts obsessively on my phone, the blue light harsh in the dark room, only to see the same zeros mocking me. I'd call Mark's number just to hear his voicemail, his recorded voice cheerful and familiar, begging silently for him to pick up and explain it was all a mistake. Meanwhile, Emma would emerge each morning, looking rested and composed, her uniform ironed, her smile unwavering. The typing continued every night, sometimes stretching until nearly midnight, the clicks filtering through the ceiling like Morse code I couldn't decipher. I started noticing other small changes. Her browser history cleared daily, a new password on her computer that she changed without telling me, whispers of secrecy that made me wonder if she was hiding pain or something more calculated. Friday evening, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the yard, I was putting away Emma's clean laundry, the scent of fabric softener a small comfort, when I saw it. A single sheet of paper on her desk, partially hidden under her science textbook, the corner peeking out like an invitation. I shouldn't have looked. Privacy was important, especially now, but the formatting caught my eye. Bold subject lines, timestamps. It was a printed email thread. The names at the top made my blood freeze. Mark and Rebecca. My hands shook as I pulled the paper out, the page crinkling under my fingers. The messages were dated from 3 weeks ago, before Mark left, discussing meeting times, hotel reservations in discreet locations, and something about handling Sarah when the time comes. They talked about me like I was a problem to solve, a loose end in their grand escape. I sat down hard on Emma's bed, the mattress dipping, staring at the evidence in my hands, proof of the affair I'd suspected but denied, now stark and undeniable. My mind raced. How had Emma gotten this? She was just a kid, more interested in coding games and reading fantasy novels than spying on adults. But the details were too specific, too intimate. I pictured her small hands printing this, her face illuminated by the screen, piecing together a puzzle that should have broken her. The betrayal stung anew, not just Mark's, but the realization that my daughter had been carrying this burden alone. Footsteps approached, and I looked up as Emma appeared in the doorway, holding her empty dinner plate from earlier, her expression calm, assessing. No panic, no embarrassment at being caught, just quiet observation, like she was evaluating my reaction. Emma stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the hall's dim light, her dinner plate balanced in one hand like a prop in a play she was directing. "Mom," she said, her voice steady, "where did you get that?" I held up the printed email thread, my hands still trembling, the paper crinkling loudly in the quiet room. "Emma, where did this come from?" She set her plate on her dresser with deliberate care, closed the bedroom door with a soft click and faced me, her dark eyes unreadable but not defensive. "Dad's not very good with passwords." The simplicity of her answer, delivered like she was explaining a math problem, made my stomach lurch. "How did you?" I started, then stopped. the weight of her words sinking in. "How long have you known about Rebecca?"
6 weeks,
she said, sitting beside me on the bed, her school uniform still crisp despite the late hour. "About the money, I figured that out the day before he left." 6 weeks. While I'd been planning family dinners, oblivious, my 12-year-old had been living with this knowledge, carrying a secret heavier than any child should bear. I felt sick. The air in her room thick with the scent of her lavender candle and my own rising panic. "Why didn't you tell me?" My voice cracked, betraying the hurt I couldn't hide. Emma's expression softened, just a flicker, making her look like the little girl who used to beg for bedtime stories. "I wanted to be sure, and I wanted to figure out what to do about it."
"Honey, this isn't your responsibility."
"Yes, it is." Her tone was firm, almost fierce. "He stole my college fund. He lied to us both. Someone had to do something." I looked around her room, her organized desk, the neat stack of books, the stuffed elephant tucked into her pillow, and saw it all differently. This wasn't just a child's space, it was a command center. She stood, reached under her mattress, and pulled out a spiral notebook, handing it to me without hesitation. The pages were a labyrinth of handwritten notes, printed screenshots, and diagrams I couldn't decipher. Phone numbers, account details, travel itineraries. My daughter had been conducting surveillance on her own father. "Emma, what is all this?" My fingers traced the meticulous handwriting, each entry dated and labeled. "Research," she said simply, sitting back down. "Dad thinks he's smart, but he's careless. Same password for everything, never clears his browser history, doesn't even log out." I flipped through the notebook, each page a revelation. Bank transfer records, text message screenshots, a timeline of Mark's movements. One entry caught my eye, a screenshot of a text from Mark to Rebecca. "Sarah won't notice the transfers until it's too late." My throat tightened. "This is incredible and terrifying," I managed. "I learned most of it from YouTube tutorials," Emma said, shrugging. "Computer security is interesting once you understand the basics. But this, hacking into accounts, it's not legal." She met my eyes, her gaze far too mature. "Neither is stealing $75,000 from your daughter." Her matter-of-fact tone sent chills down my spine. This wasn't my little girl anymore. This was someone new, calculating and unafraid. "Show me everything," I said, my voice barely steady. Emma hesitated, the first crack in her composure. "Mom, some of it's pretty bad." "Show me." She opened her laptop, the screen glowing in the dim room, and pulled up a folder labeled Science Fair Project. Inside were subfolders, financial records, communication logs, identity theft evidence. My stomach churned as she clicked on communication logs. "It started with Dad's second phone," she said, opening a folder of photos she'd taken through a cracked bedroom door. Blurry images of Mark texting on a device I'd never seen. I waited until he left it charging in his office one day. I had 10 minutes to get into his messages. The screen filled with screenshots of texts between Mark and Rebecca, planning their escape, discussing me like I was an obstacle. "Handle Sarah gently," Rebecca wrote. "She'll fall apart without you." I felt like I might throw up, but Emma clicked to another folder, unfazed. "Rebecca Sterling works at Dad's accounting firm," she said, pulling up a file labeled Sterling Profile. "She handles client investments and trust accounts. She's been stealing from them for 2 years." The evidence was staggering. Fake invoices, doctored investment statements, money funneled into personal accounts. Emma had accessed Rebecca's work computer, documenting every crime. "How did you get into her systems?" I asked, my voice hollow. "She uses Sterling 2011 for everything, her last name and college graduation year. Found it on her LinkedIn." Emma shrugged, like cracking someone's digital life was as simple as a crossword puzzle. I stared at her, this stranger who was still my daughter, her fingers moving across the keyboard with a confidence that felt alien. Another folder opened. Bank statements in my name, accounts I'd never opened, credit applications under Emma's social security number, loan documents with forged signatures. "Dad didn't just take our money," Emma said, her jaw tightening. "He used our identities for a $200,000 loan to buy a house in Florida with Rebecca." The room tilted. Identity theft, fraud. Mark hadn't just left us. He'd weaponized our trust to build a new life. I gripped the notebook, its edges biting into my palms. "They were going to disappear and leave us with the debt," Emma said, her voice steady but laced with something cold. something righteous. She clicked to a folder labeled Countermeasures. Inside were fraud reports filed with credit agencies, complaints to banking authorities, anonymous tips to Rebecca's employer. "I've been working on this for 3 weeks," she explained. "I documented everything, then started dismantling their plans." My mind reeled. My 12-year-old had outmaneuvered 2 adults, unraveling their schemes with precision I couldn't comprehend. "What are you planning to do with all this?" I asked, dreading the answer. She closed the notebook carefully. "I'm still working on that. But don't worry, Mom, I've got this handled." That phrase again. "I've got this handled," echoed from the morning Mark left, now heavy with meaning. I looked at her, silhouetted against the glow of her laptop, and realized I didn't fully know the person sitting beside me. Her stuffed elephant sat on the bed, a relic of the child she used to be, while the notebook in my hands revealed someone far more formidable. The lavender candle flickered, casting shadows that danced across her serious face. I wanted to hug her, to tell her she didn't have to carry this burden, but her calm certainty stopped me. She wasn't asking for comfort. She was waging a war I hadn't even known existed. As she powered down her laptop, the room fell silent, save for the distant hum of the refrigerator downstairs. I left her room, the email thread still clutched in my hand, my heart pounding with a mix of awe and fear. What had my daughter become? And what would she do next? Emma's notebook lay heavy in my lap, its pages a map of her secret war, each entry a step toward justice I hadn't dared to imagine. The glow from her laptop had faded, but her words, "I've got this handled," hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. I sat on her bed, the stuffed elephant staring blankly from her pillow, and tried to process the scope of what she'd done. My 12-year-old daughter, who still needed help tying her soccer cleats, had infiltrated her father's digital life and uncovered a web of lies. "Emma," I said, my voice shaky, "tell me exactly what you've done to them." She leaned back in her chair, her school uniform slightly wrinkled now, and fixed me with those serious eyes, no trace of doubt or fear. "I made sure they couldn't get away with it," she said simply, as if explaining why she'd finished her homework early. The room smelled faintly of lavender and ink, the air thick with the weight of her confession. She reopened her laptop, the screen casting a blue glow across her face, and clicked into the countermeasures folder. "It started with Rebecca's job," she said, pulling up an email draft addressed to Rebecca's boss, timestamped 2 weeks ago. The message detailed embezzlement, fake invoices, siphoned client funds, altered investment records, backed by screenshots Emma had pulled from Rebecca's work computer. "I sent this anonymously through a proxy server," she explained. "Her boss got it yesterday. Rebecca was suspended by noon, escorted out by security." My jaw dropped. "You got her fired?" "She stole from elderly clients, Mom. Retirement funds, life savings. She deserved it." Her voice was steady, righteous, but the cold satisfaction in it made my skin prickle. She clicked to another file, a fraud report filed with Equifax, freezing the accounts Mark had opened in our names. "This stopped the Florida mortgage," she said. "The bank flagged it as suspicious after I tipped them off." I stared at the screen, rows of official documents scrolling by, complaints to the state banking board, alerts to credit bureaus, even a tip to Rebecca's landlord about suspicious activity in her apartment, triggering an eviction notice. "How did you know to do all this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "YouTube tutorials mostly," she said, shrugging, "and some cybersecurity forums. People share a lot if you ask the right questions." She opened another folder, Sterling Fallout, and showed me a letter she'd sent to Rebecca's father, Dr. Robert Sterling, a prominent surgeon. It outlined Rebecca's crimes with clinical precision, attaching bank records and client complaints. "He cut her off financially 2 days ago," Emma said. "She's scrambling now, can't even pay her rent." I felt dizzy, the room tilting as I gripped the notebook tighter, its edges biting into my palms. "But Dad's the real problem," Emma continued, her tone hardening. She pulled up a timeline of Mark's actions. Transfers from our accounts, forged loan applications, emails coordinating with Rebecca to secure their future. "He thought he could disappear with her, leave us holding the debt," she said. "So I froze his accounts too. Sent evidence to his bank and his boss. They're investigating him for fraud now." My heart pounded. My daughter had dismantled 2 adults' lives with a few keystrokes, her small hands orchestrating chaos while I'd been crying into his old sweaters. "Emma, this is dangerous," I said, my voice trembling. "Going after people like this, what if they come after you?" She looked at me, unflinching. "More dangerous than letting them destroy us? They took my future, Mom. They took your security. I wasn't gonna let that stand." She clicked to a final file, labeled Phase 2. It contained a draft email to a federal regulatory agency outlining Mark and Rebecca's entire scheme: identity theft, embezzlement, forged documents, with a promise to send more evidence if needed. "I haven't sent this yet," she said. "I'm waiting for the right moment. When they're desperate, they'll make bigger mistakes." Her words chilled me, not just for their calculation, but for the quiet confidence behind them. This wasn't revenge. It was strategy. A 12-year-old playing chess with adults who didn't even know they were on the board. I thought of Mark's suitcase, his cold eyes as he left, and felt a flicker of satisfaction myself. He'd underestimated her, us, and now he was paying for it. "Emma, how do you stay so calm?" I asked, my voice cracking. She closed her laptop, the snap echoing in the quiet room. "Because I'm not the one who has to be scared anymore. They are." She stood, walked to her window, and looked out at the darkening sky, her small frame silhouetted against the glass. The streetlights flickered on outside, casting a soft glow into her room, illuminating the neat stack of textbooks and the notebook that held her battle plan. "What's next?" I asked, dreading her answer but needing to know. "We wait," she said, turning back to me. "Rebecca's world is crumbling, and Dad will feel it soon. Panic makes people sloppy." I nodded, my throat tight, unable to argue with her logic or her resolve. As I left her room, the notebook still in my hands, I felt the weight of her actions settling over me. My daughter had become a force I didn't fully understand, wielding skills I couldn't fathom to protect us from a betrayal I hadn't seen coming. Downstairs, the house was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in my mind. I sank onto the couch, the email thread and notebook beside me, and stared at the family photos on the wall. Mark's smile now a lie, Emma's eyes hiding a strength I'd never suspected. The air smelled of tomato soup and betrayal, and I wondered what else Emma was capable of, what other secrets she held behind her calm facade. That night, I lay awake, the distant clicking of her keyboard filtering through the walls, steady and relentless, like a heartbeat driving us toward an uncertain future. She was fighting for us, but at what cost? And how far would she go? The phone rang at exactly 2:15 on a Tuesday afternoon, shattering the quiet of the kitchen where I stood washing lunch dishes, the soapy water warm against my hands. Mark's name flashed across the screen, and my heart lurched, a mix of dread and foolish hope tightening my chest. I fumbled for the phone, my fingers slippery, the dish towel forgotten on the counter. "Hello?" My voice came out smaller than I intended, barely masking the tremor. "Sarah." Mark's voice was different, strained, almost desperate, a far cry from the cold determination he'd shown when he walked out. "We need to talk. Something very strange is happening." I dried my hands, the towel rough against my skin, and glanced toward the living room where Emma sat at the kitchen table, supposedly doing homework. "What kind of strange?" I asked, my stomach already nodding with suspicion. "My bank called this morning," he said, words tumbling out in a rush. "All my accounts are frozen, pending some federal review. And Rebecca, Sarah, she lost her job yesterday. Security escorted her out." Emma appeared in the doorway, still in her school uniform, her movements calm as she poured herself a glass of water from the pitcher on the counter. Her eyes flicked to me, sharp and attentive, listening to every word. "I don't understand what that has to do with me," I said, keeping my tone neutral, though my pulse raced. "It's too much of a coincidence," Mark insisted, his voice rising. "First, Rebecca gets fired for some bogus embezzlement claim. Now my finances are under investigation. Someone's targeting us, Sarah. Someone with serious technical skills." Emma set her glass down with a soft clink and opened her laptop, her fingers moving with practiced ease. The screen lit up with multiple windows, data streams, email interfaces, flashing too quickly for me to follow. "Who would do that?" I asked, though I already knew the answer, the truth heavy in the air like the scent of dish soap lingering on my hands. "That's what I'm trying to figure out," Mark said. "Rebecca thinks it's a coworker she rejected, but A soft chime cut him off, coming from Emma's laptop. "What was that sound?" he demanded. Emma's fingers danced across the keyboard, her expression focused, almost serene. "What sound?" I said, playing dumb, my eyes locked on her screen, where I glimpsed an email window opening and closing in real time. "A beep, like someone accessed my email," Mark said, panic creeping into his voice. "Sarah, someone's in my computer right now. I can see messages opening and closing." Emma's hands moved faster, fluid as a pianist, navigating what looked like Mark's inbox, financial documents scrolling by. She was inside his system, watching him unravel. "Mark, maybe call your bank," I suggested, my voice tight. "No, wait," he said, suspicion sharpening his tone. "Did you hire someone? A private investigator? A hacker? Because if you did, you need to call them off. This is illegal." Emma glanced up, her eyes meeting mine, and gave a slight shake of her head, a silent instruction to stay steady. "I didn't hire anyone," I said, the truth bitter on my tongue. "Then who?" Mark's voice broke off, replaced by frantic typing on his end. "Someone just sent an email from my account to my boss. They're impersonating me." Emma minimized one window, opened another, social media profiles, document uploads flashing briefly before she angled the screen away. "What did the email say?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I don't know, it's happening too fast." His breathing was audible now, ragged. "They're in my social media, posting financial documents, private messages between me and Rebecca." "Call the police," I said, watching Emma's calm precision as she worked. "I tried." Mark snapped. "They said if the information's true, it's not harassment, it's whistleblowing." Emma's lips twitched, almost a smile, as she opened another window, a banking interface with red flag transactions. "Sarah, the money I took," Mark said, his voice softening, pleading. "I was going to pay it back. Rebecca had an investment opportunity, guaranteed to double our money in 6 months. We were going to surprise you and Emma with more than what was there." Emma looked up, her expression cold, calculating, as she typed notes, documenting his lies. "That's not how loans work, Mark," I said, anger rising. "You can't take our money without permission and call it a loan." "You don't understand the pressure," he said, voice cracking. "Rebecca's father was threatening to cut her off. She needed the money to prove she was serious about our future." "So you stole Emma's college fund to impress your girlfriend's father?" My voice shook with fury. Emma closed her laptop with a quiet snap, stood, and gently took the phone from my hand. "Hi, Dad," she said, her tone conversational, like she was discussing a school project. "Emma, sweetheart," Mark said, relief flooding his voice. "Someone's doing terrible things to me and Rebecca, making us look like criminals. Tell your mom I'd never steal from you." "But you did," Emma said, calm as ever. "You took $75,000 from my college account and used it for a mortgage in Florida." Silence stretched for 10 seconds. "Who told you that?" Mark whispered. "Nobody. I found out myself, along with the forged loan documents using my social security number." "You're 12, he stammered. "You couldn't possibly." "I have copies of everything," she cut in. "Every email, every forged document, every illegal transaction. I've been watching you for weeks." Mark's breathing grew labored. "Watching me? Emma, what does that mean?" "I know about your second phone, the fake investment accounts, the house you tried to buy with my identity," she said, sitting at the table, still composed. "And I know Rebecca blocked you after her father cut her off. She's already dating someone else." A sound like a sob came through the phone. "Emma, please, I'm your father. I love you. I never meant for this to go so far." "You chose her over us," Emma said, her voice unwavering. "You stole my future. Actions have consequences, Dad. You taught me that." She hung up, the silence deafening. She set the phone down and looked at me. "He won't call back," she said matter-of-factly. "How do you know?" "Because he knows I'm watching, and every move he makes I'll see coming." She picked up her laptop and headed to her room, leaving me alone in the kitchen, the scent of dish soap fading, replaced by the weight of what I'd just witnessed. My daughter had dismantled her father's life with a few keystrokes, and he deserved every second of it. I stood in the kitchen long after Emma had gone to her room, the phone still warm in my hand from the call, the silence pressing in like a physical weight. The scent of dish soap lingered on my skin, a mundane reminder of the life I'd been clinging to before everything shattered. My daughter had just confronted her father with a composure that chilled me, exposing his lies and leaving him broken, all while I watched, helpless and awed. Part of me wanted to feel guilty, to rush upstairs and demand she reverse whatever digital traps she'd set, but a deeper part surged with pride. Fierce, protective pride. Emma had shielded us when I couldn't, turning vulnerability into victory. Yet, as the afternoon light faded through the window, casting long shadows across the tile floor, I wondered about the toll on her young heart. She was 12, not a vigilante, and I needed to ensure this strength didn't come at the cost of her innocence. The next morning, Emma appeared at breakfast like any other middle schooler, spooning cereal into her bowl with mechanical precision, her ponytail swinging slightly as she sat. She looked rested, untroubled, as if the previous day's confrontation was just another homework assignment completed and filed away. "Emma, wait," I said, catching her arm gently as she headed for the door, the fabric of her backpack strap rough under my fingers.
Are you okay?
She tilted her head, considering the question with that serious expression I'd come to recognize all too well, her dark eyes searching mine. "I'm fine, Mom."
Why wouldn't I be?
"Because of what happened yesterday with your father."
What about it?
Her lack of emotional ripple unnerved me, like she'd intellectualized the pain into irrelevance. "Honey, that was intense. It's normal to feel upset or confused." "I'm not upset," she said, adjusting her straps. "I'm relieved. He knows what he did, and there are consequences for stealing from family." "But don't you miss him? Even a little?" Emma paused, hand on the doorknob, the morning light filtering through the glass and highlighting her young features. "I missed the dad I thought he was. But that person wasn't real, was he? Just a role he played when it suited him." Her analysis, so detached and precise, terrified me. Where was the raw hurt, the tears I'd shed for weeks? After she left for school, the bus rumbling away down the street, I called our pediatrician's office, my voice steady, despite the knot in my throat. Dr. Martinez listened patiently as I explained the situation, the betrayal, Emma's actions, her eerie calm. "Gifted children often process trauma differently," she said. "They intellectualize emotions rather than express them traditionally." She recommended Dr. Patricia Reeves, a child psychologist specializing in family trauma and high-intelligence kids. An appointment was set for the following week, and I hung up feeling a sliver of hope, though doubt lingered like the faint coffee aroma in the air. In the meantime, I observed Emma like a puzzle I couldn't solve. She kept her routine. School, chores, helping with dinner, her small hands chopping vegetables with surprising skill. But subtle shifts emerged. She'd taken over our finances, creating spreadsheets on her laptop that tracked our meager income against mounting expenses, projecting budgets for the next year with formulas I'd never understand. One evening, as I paid bills at the kitchen table, the envelopes scattered like fallen leaves, she sat across from me. "Mom, you need to file for divorce immediately," she said, her voice matter of fact. "Every day you wait gives Dad time to high assets or create more debt in your name." "Emma, these are adult concerns," I protested, though her words stung with truth. "Someone has to handle them," she replied. "You're depressed, which is understandable, but not productive. I'm clear-headed right now." Her assessment of my state, accurate and clinical, hit hard. I'd been wallowing, hoping for a miracle, while she forged ahead. Dr. Reeves' office was a haven of soothing blues and greens, children's artwork adorning one wall like colorful confessions. I expected Emma to be nervous, fidgeting in the waiting room chair, but she walked in like it was a routine checkup, her backpack slung over one shoulder. "Emma, I'm Dr. Reeves," the psychologist said, her smile warm, extending a hand. "Your mom thought we could chat about the changes in your family." "That's fine," Emma said, shaking her hand firmly. "I understand this is probably mandatory after what I did to my father." Dr. Reeves blinked, caught off guard by the directness, but recovered quickly. "Can you tell me about that?" For the next 45 minutes, Emma laid it out. The affair discovery, hacking, countermeasures, all in a calm, factual narrative, like a school report on historical events. She described the embezzlement tips, frozen accounts, and the phone confrontation without a hint of regret or turmoil. "How did that make you feel?" Dr. Reeves asked, her pen poised over her notepad. "Satisfied," Emma replied promptly. "He stole from me, so I ensured consequences. It felt like justice." Do you feel sad about him leaving? I feel sad he became someone who steals from his child, but not about him facing results. When the session ended, Dr. Reeves asked to speak with me privately, Emma waiting in the lobby with a book. Mrs. Patterson, your daughter is remarkable, she began, her tone careful. Her cognitive abilities are exceptional, her resilience extraordinary. But is it healthy? I pressed. Should a child do this without guilt or trauma? Responses vary, especially in intelligent kids. She's taken control in a functional way. She leaned forward. The question is, are you comfortable with who she's becoming? That evening, I found Emma in her room, laptop open, but not to surveillance tools. It was a Word document. Digital safety for families, warning signs and protection strategies. What's this, sweetheart? I asked, peering over her shoulder at sections on password security and fraud detection. A guide for kids whose parents might steal from them and adults who don't spot it. The content was thorough, sophisticated for her age. I've been researching family financial fraud, she said. It's common. Mrs. Henderson wants me to present this to the PTA next month. 3 other families in our district faced similar issues. I read her clear advice, pride swelling despite my worries. She was transforming pain into prevention, her small frame hunched over the keyboard, turning betrayal into a shield for others. 6 months had slipped by like shadows lengthening at dusk, and I found myself stacking books in the children's section of Milberg Community Library, the familiar scent of paper and dust a quiet anchor in our new rhythm. My supervisor, Linda, approached with a nervous twitch in her step, glancing over her shoulder as if sharing a secret. Sarah, there's a reporter here asking about your daughter, she whispered, her voice low amid the hushed whispers of patrons. My heart stuttered, the book in my hand nearly slipping. What kind of reporter? She's investigating the Rebecca Sterling embezzlement case, says the anonymous whistleblower might be connected to our area. I walked to the front desk on legs that felt like jelly, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The reporter, Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News, smiled professionally, notepad in hand. Mrs. Patterson, I'm doing a follow-up on the Sterling fraud scandal. I understand your ex-husband was involved. I can't comment, I said quickly, my pulse racing. The story's gone national, she pressed. Rebecca faces federal charges, and more victims are coming forward. The evidence was thorough. We'd love to thank the whistleblower. After she left, her card burning in my pocket, I drove home to our modest apartment, hands shaking on the wheel, the radio droning forgotten news. Emma was at the kitchen table, homework spread out like a normal teen, but her laptop hummed beside her math worksheet. A reporter came to the library today about the Rebecca Sterling case, I said carefully, setting down my bag. She didn't look up, pencil scratching steadily. They'll never connect it to me. I used 7 different proxy servers and cryptocurrency for the anonymous accounts. Emma, it's getting bigger, I said, sinking into a chair, the vinyl cool against my back. She's good, Mom. The more attention, the more victims come forward. She finished a problem, moved to the next. I've been monitoring the news. 12 other families contacted authorities about Rebecca's schemes. The casual way she discussed her impact still stunned me, like a science project yielding unexpected results. 3 weeks later, an email pinged on her laptop that shifted everything. From Secure Family, a tech company specializing in cybersecurity, offering her a spot in their youth program after somehow piercing her digital veil. They're offering a full scholarship to any college, plus a job after graduation, Emma said, showing me the letter, the screen glowing in our dim kitchen. Starting at $120,000 a year. I stared at the figures, my breath catching. Emma, this is incredible. It could set you up for life. I know. She closed the laptop decisively. I'm turning it down. What? Why? They want to own what I create, build software that profits from fear instead of true protection. She stood, walked to the window overlooking the parking lot, her reflection faint in the glass. Besides, I already have a job. From her backpack, she pulled a business card, professionally designed. E. Patterson, Family Financial Protection Consultant. I've been helping families for a month, 6 clients now, $75 an hour for consultations. I took the card, tracing the crisp font, the email, and website listed. Emma, you're 13. How are you running a business? Age doesn't matter online. Clients think I'm an adult cybersecurity expert specializing in family protection. She opened a spreadsheet, columns of income glowing, enough in 1 month to rival 3 of my library paychecks, rebuilding most of her college fund. What services do you provide? I asked, leaning in. Identify red flags, secure accounts, recover stolen funds. Last week, I helped an Ohio family reclaim $30,000 from a son's theft of his grandmother's retirement. Is it legal? Completely. I teach protection and guide reporting to authorities. She minimized the sheet. I'm speaking at a cybersecurity conference next month as E. Patterson via encrypted video, so age isn't an issue. That evening, I delved into the Rebecca Sterling case online, the story viral across platforms, national outlets dissecting the fraud. Comments poured in, outrage at the theft, praise for the anonymous hero exposing it. Threads shared similar betrayals, parents draining kids' savings, spouses hiding assets, relatives exploiting elders. Emma's work had unleashed a wave of stories, validating hidden pains. 2 months into this new phase, as spring whispered through blooming trees, Emma posed a question that halted me mid-dishwashing, suds dripping from my hands. Mom, do you think Dad ever regrets what he did? The plate nearly slipped. I don't know, sweetheart. Why? I've monitored his social media, posts about starting over, better choices, but never us. She dried a glass precisely, wondering if he realizes what he lost. What do you think? She paused, folding the towel neatly. Regret is just self-pity for consequences, not understanding why it was wrong. Do you want him to regret? No, I want him to understand, but he's not capable. The conversation ended there, filed away like her father's misdeeds. Spring brought warmth like tentative hope. Emma's business grew, and she crafted free resources, checklists for security, guides on warning signs, steps for reporting crimes. I want a nonprofit at 18, she said one evening, working on her latest project. Free services for families who can't afford consultants. It began from Dad's betrayal but grew bigger, countless families victimized by trusted ones. One late spring evening, I overheard her on a video call, voice gentle. It's scary finding your mother used your college fund, but you're okay. I'll help protect what's left. She was guiding another teen through betrayal's maze. Remember, it's not your fault. Adults should protect kids, not steal. When they don't, we protect ourselves. Tears pricked my eyes, not sadness, but pride, as I walked away. Mark's actions hadn't broken us. They'd forged resilience. Emma turned trauma into a lifeline, her purpose a beacon for others. The morning after overhearing Emma's call, I watched her from the kitchen doorway as she prepared for school. Her movements efficient and purposeful, backpack zipped with everything in its place. She looked like any 8th grader. Ponytail swinging, sneakers tied neatly, but I knew the extraordinary depth beneath that surface. She'd taken the worst betrayal and alchemized it into purpose. Her skills now a shield for strangers facing the same shadows we'd escaped. Ready for school? I asked, kissing her forehead, the scent of her shampoo a gentle reminder of the child she still was. Always, she said, shouldering her bag. Oh, and Mom, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. As she walked to the bus stop, her figure receding under the spring sun, I realized Mark's actions hadn't destroyed us. They'd revealed our core strength. Emma had claimed more than justice. She'd forged a future, sharing it to safeguard others. Mark could cling to his remnants. We'd built something enduring from the fragments. Months blurred into a steady rhythm, our apartment a hub of quiet activity. Emma's consulting grew, clients from across states seeking her expertise via encrypted calls, her voice steady as she guided them through recovery. She balanced it with school, acing tests, and joining the coding club, where teachers marveled at her talent without knowing its origins. One afternoon, as rain pattered against the windows, I found her updating her nonprofit plans. A website draft with free tools for fraud detection, partnerships with legal aid groups sketched in a new notebook. This could help hundreds, she said, scrolling through mock-ups. Families like us deserve early warnings. Pride swelled in me, mixed with gratitude. Her transformation wasn't just survival, it was generosity, turning personal scars into communal healing. The Rebecca Sterling case echoed nationally, headlines praising the digital whistleblower who exposed a fraud ring preying on vulnerable clients. More victims emerged, widows drained of savings, families burdened by hidden debts, crediting anonymous tips that mirrored Emma's methods. She monitored it all discreetly, her laptop a window to the impact, occasionally sharing snippets. Another family in Texas got their money back today. I nodded, amazed at the ripple from her actions, a 13-year-old sparking change that rippled far beyond our walls. Reporters circled closer, but Emma's proxies held, her identity a ghost in the machine. They focus on the story, not the source, she said, unconcerned, her focus on the next client, the next guide. Reflections on Mark surfaced rarely, but when they did, they carried weight. One evening, as we cleared dinner plates, the clink of silverware filling the air, Emma asked, "Do you ever wonder if Dad's learned anything?" I paused, drying a fork. Sometimes. But people change only if they choose to. She nodded, her expression thoughtful. His posts are sadder now, talks about regrets without specifics. But no apologies, no outreach. Does that bother you? Not anymore. It confirms he wasn't capable of more. Her words, wise beyond years, eased something in me. She'd processed the loss, emerging unburdened. Therapy sessions with Dr. Reeves continued sporadically, affirming Emma's health, resilient, not repressed. She's channeling energy positively, the doctor said. That's rare strength. Emma's PTA presentation drew a crowd, parents nodding as she explained red flags and family finances, her voice clear over the microphone, slides projecting steps for protection. Knowledge is the best defense, she concluded, earning applause that flushed her cheeks. Afterward, a mother approached, tears in her eyes. You just described my situation. Thank you. Emma smiled modestly, but I saw the spark. Fulfillment in helping, a balm for old wounds. Her business funded extras, coding classes for her, a small vacation for us to the coast, where we walked beaches and talked dreams. I want to study computer science, she said, waves crashing nearby, but focus on ethical security, helping people, not corporations. I squeezed her hand, the sand warm underfoot, proud of her moral compass, forged in fire, but pointing true. As summer approached, Emma organized a free webinar series teaching teens digital safety, her sessions packed with participants sharing stories. You're building a community, I told her one night, tucking her in, her stuffed elephant still a bedside companion. It's what we needed, someone to say it's not your fault. She yawned, eyes heavy. Good night, Mom. Standing in the hallway, light spilling from her door, I marveled at her growth. Mark's betrayal had tested us, but Emma rose as a protector, her hope infectious. We'd reclaimed our narrative, turning pain into empowerment, a legacy brighter than any stolen fund. In the quiet months that followed, our lives settled into a gentle cadence, the sharp edges of betrayal softening like sea glass worn by waves. Emma's days blended school laughter with evening consultations, her voice a soothing guide for families navigating their own storms. We'd sit on the apartment balcony some evenings, watching the sun dip low, sharing stories of the people she'd helped, a grandmother reclaiming her savings, a teen securing their future. It's like planting seeds, she said softly, her words carried on the breeze. They grow into something safe. I nodded, my heart full, the weight of those early days lifting as we built memories untainted by loss. Therapy became less frequent, Dr. Reeves noting Emma's balanced outlook, her emotions expressed through action rather than tears. She's not just surviving, the doctor whispered in our last session. She's thriving, and so are you. At home, Emma's nonprofit plans took shape, a website launching with free resources, downloads spiking as word spread. Clients sent thank you notes, some with drawings from kids she'd indirectly protected, stacking on her desk like testaments to her quiet revolution. One twilight, as fireflies danced outside, Emma hugged me unexpectedly. Thanks for believing in me, Mom. Her embrace was warm, a reminder that beneath her strength beat a tender heart. We'd transformed together, me finding purpose in supporting her, her channeling hurt into hope. Mark faded to a distant echo, his choices a lesson we no longer dwelled on. Instead, we looked forward, to colleges she'd choose freely, to lives rebuilt on trust we'd forged ourselves. As nights grew longer, Emma's keyboard clicks became a lullaby, not of vengeance, but creation. She dreamed aloud of expanding her work, perhaps traveling to share her story anonymously. We'll be okay, she murmured one evening, head on my shoulder. And we were. More than okay, wrapped in the soft glow of resilience. The world outside hummed with possibilities, our bond unbreakable, whispering promises of brighter tomorrows.